Hey, welcome to the latest edition of Veterans Rant, Revel, and Roll. I'm David L. Parker, Sergeant First Class Retired. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button so when you know we're on here doing things. But for now, sit back and enjoy the show. Let's get to the next episode. Hey, welcome to another episode of Veterans Rant, Rattle and Roll. I'm Sergeant First Class Retired. See, every time I do that, I can't say it because I'm so tired. Let's say retired. That's my rant for today.
There you go.
We're here with retired Sergeant First Class Spencer Polwort. How you doing, Spencer?
Doing good, brother. How you doing, my friend?
I can't complain because when I do household 6 tells me to shut the front door, so I just I'm going. So looks like you're in a nice green tree warm place.
Yep, down in Houston, Texas. It's a lovely, probably 92, 93 degrees out today. Good, nice winter Houston day, you know. So we all get a little bit of humidity and sweat our ass off down here. So that's what we do.
Makes sense, makes sense. So no mask in your house?
No mask in my house. I have been, I somewhat semi-retired. Right. And so I am self-quarantining. And yeah, no mask. I don't want to catch the flu. So.
All right, so let's jump into this, have a little fun. What brought you to the Army? You woke up one day and said, I want to be who?
No. So I woke up and found out my parents were changing the laws. So basically what had happened was, and this goes back a little bit because you got to remember I was a prior service guy at one point. So 1988, I had graduated high school, barely. Went to college for a semester. I took 4 classes. I got 3 Fs and 1 A because I didn't go. And I had to do something. And so my dad and I went to Kentucky, worked up there for a year. He took over a plant, and I went and worked with him, which was one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life. But came back and was just lost. I had to do something. It was either get a job, move out, or take college serious. I was too busy partying. I wanted to do none of those 3 things. And so it was kind of like, well, shit, the Army will take me. And so I joined the Army.
Of course, you might have, no, we won't go there. So you came when?
So I came in originally in 1988. Found myself originally at the 82nd Airborne, and that's where I did my first 4 years. Desert Storm guy too. So.
Wow, I came in the Army in 1984, so we were all together.
Yeah, back when you used to be able to smoke people for absolutely no reason.
Ooh, is that not the truth? So you came in as what was your MOS?
13 Fox, Forward Observer.
You did that the whole time through?
I did. So we can kind of flash forward. So after I got out of the military, I got out in the end of '91, basically right after Desert Storm. So after Desert Storm, got out, went into the corporate life, worked up to an assistant plant manager position, ended up doing rail cars for quite a while. Had a downturn in the market, November of '98. After about 7 years, kind of burned out, high stress job, the whole 9 yards, and found myself actually considering, after a visit with my brother, of going back in the Army. And in '98, went back in the Army as a PV2.
Wow, talk about a similar. I got out in '93, so a couple years after you, but I didn't start until 2002.
Yeah. And so it's always remarkable when you kind of do the prior service. And I actually got smoked. And there's a kind of a, and I'm not going to get into the rant portion yet, but it was actually kind of funny because, when I came back in, I had an 82nd combat patch. Well, at this point, 9/11 had never happened. So the last combat deployment was Desert Storm. And so I was an E2 with a combat patch, one of the very few people in the unit that had a combat patch that wasn't an E7 or E8. And I had this sergeant first class, and we were out on a field problem, and he just kept smoking me at every opportunity. And at that point, I was an FO for a platoon company, and my brother was actually a platoon sergeant of another platoon, same company. And so he went over to this platoon sergeant. He was like, "Why do you keep smoking my brother? I ain't going to, smoke him away. I mean, if that's what you want to do. But why do you keep smoking him?" And he goes, "Well, I didn't know that was your brother." And he goes, "What did he get busted for?" And he said, he didn't get busted for anything. He's just prior service and came back in. He's like, "Oh, dude, my bad. I thought he was a shitbird. I thought he was." I thought he was an E2, you know, and he was wearing pin on rank, and you know, he got busted or something. So
Sure.
I just been smoking dog piss out of him for no reason, and I was like, I'm good with that, man. But that's back when, you know, that was kind of, you know, you could have kind of gone up the chain and been a total jerk about it. You know what, man? You know, to this day, we still kind of look back and laugh about it because that was something that no harm, no foul. Maybe stronger, maybe my PT score came up a little bit because of it. Oh, it's whatever, you know. But a lot of good times back then. That was up in Alaska, actually. So
Man, I can't believe that. That's just funnier than heck. And the reason it's so funny to me, and I know we're not in the ranting part, but I came back in the Army in October of 02 and I went to Fort Drum. Now my unit's deployed to JRTC, so blah, blah. I'm in the gym, right? Every night. Well, like 2 weeks into this dude, you know, roughly my age, walks up to me and goes, "What the hell? Who did you beat up?" Right? And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I'm like, "Forgive me." Like, well, I am now a sergeant major, won't say the name. I was one of your team leaders. Who the hell did you beat the crap out of? Because I ain't seen you in a decade and you're an E5? And I'm like,
yeah.
Sergeant major, I got out for 9 years. He's like, okay.
Yeah. Makes sense, man. You know, so.
You retired out of?
Fort Carson, Colorado. Fort Carson, Colorado was my last duty station, and that was it. You know, finished up a horrific deployment to Kuwait, and I mean, you know, because we all know Kuwait's a deployment, right?
Well,
and so finished up with that, and got back and actually dropped paperwork in Kuwait, and then came back, and that was it, man. It was done. Retired on May 3rd or March 3rd, and started working on March 5th.
There you go. There you go. So even though we sort of trickled into what I made the rant tiny bit and sort of a roll, because that's a funny story. So what do you want to rant about? Tell me something that made you crazy in those. How many years did you do again?
20.
20. Just, can you say that? Is it right to say just 20? I mean,
You know, and I tell a lot of people this, you know, when they get ready to come in, you know, they're like, well, I'm just going to spend, you know, 4 years, and I'm going to spend, you know, maybe 6 years. And what happens, and you know it, and I know it because we've lived it, it seems like when you hit that 10-year mark, you're pot committed. But as you kind of go, time just, it's not even a factor anymore because you hit these markers, and all of a sudden it's like, well, holy shit, I've been in 13 years. And then you're in depth. And then you're sitting there going, well, you know, I really need to, I got a PCS, but if I PCS, that's going to take me to the 17-year mark. That's okay. And then you're kind of sitting there going, well, holy shit, man, I've only got 2 years retirement. And then you know you got that 1 year mark. And all of a sudden you look around, you're like, where the hell did the last 20 years go? And it goes by in a blink of an eye, and nobody can understand that unless you kind of lived that 20 years because you still think it still feels like it was 4 years. Yeah. You know, I mean, it didn't seem like it was 20 at all. And then I get out of the military and I look at some of my peers who are in my same age group, and I'm like, holy shit, do I look that old? And I'm hoping that I don't, but I got a little bit of gray, but I'm telling you, I got some people my age, man, that look like they are like AARP members and have been for years. And I'm like, man, civilian life has just tore you up.
We're going to do this because you want to look old. We're going to go ahead and bring it all out. There you go.
Well, you know, I can't do that, you know, because, you know, God finds it funnier that I grow the shit on my back instead of my head. So,
oh, well, there you go.
I mean, if I grew that right now, it would look pretty freaking pathetic. So,
you look like a balding version of Joe Dirtay.
Probably, you know, and if I actually were able to do that, I would actually grow the mutton chops.
It's actually funny for me because it's so gray on the top, and then when I let it down like that, some of the old brown and black comes back out, and I'm like, okay, am I just going to go all gray here, or is this a slow rust?
There you go. There you go.
So what do you want to rant about, man?
You know, so life is good right now, man. You know, but rants, you know, it's always kind of funny because, you know, I still keep in touch with a lot of the military guys that I was with, and lots of people are doing some really great things. But I tell you, so I look at the military now, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think I got out just in the nick of time because there are some, the ass clownery right now that's going on in some of the things, man. you know, and not to say that's all in the, you know, USA WTF moments and all that, but I look at some of that stuff, and I look at the new PT test, and I look at the, yet again, another uniform change. And it's, you know, the counseling and the NCOERs and the OER forms and all this kind of stuff. And I tell you, it just seems like, I'm glad I got out at the time I did. You know, I don't know how it is for a lot of the guys now, but I can tell you, it just seems like it's a whole different world. And maybe it's because I'm not in it anymore and I've seen it from the outside. But I'd be curious to know. So.
No, I think you're dead on the money. So right next door to me is a retiring CW3, and he's been in the N 22 years straight. He isn't going to break like you and I. So it's like I talk about, you and I have seen several different armies. I saw the Army of the 80s, the Army of the 90s, jump forward, 2000s, you know, 2010s. So my 22-year career expanded 30 years, 1984 to 16, 32 years. Yours was, when did you go to basic?
88. Fort Dix, New Jersey. Actually, it's not even around anymore.
Where?
Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Right. That's actually where I went to basic training in 1984. But you went from 98 to when?
2015.
Right. So you still have that, and it's amazing to watch. I mean, think about it. All those uniforms, BDU, ACU, blah, 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 blah.
Oh.
Being right here at Fort Carson, I get to see it. I get to see some interesting changes every single day. So you did on the money.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I kind of, you know, the one thing that I wish that they would bring back, and if this is a rant of any kind, it'll be this. Bring back the freaking leather boots that you have to polish. Bring them back, because I'll tell you, that's what separated lots of soldiers. You could tell a soldier pretty close. Now, not 100%, so don't be that guy that sits there and says, well, I took mine to the barber shop. I don't know if you remember taking your boots to the barber shop to get them polished.
I did it.
Right, but you could always tell. I can remember in Alaska when I first came back in, I would come back in after work, and I had a lazy boy, and we get ready to watch TV. And I had a can of kiwi with a bag of cotton balls, and we would watch TV. My daughter at the time was 9 months old, and I would sit there, and she would lay down. She would get a little nap, and I would take my ice cube and put it in the can, and I would polish my boots every night. That's what you did. And the guys that brush shine their boots with the boot brush, you knew who they were, and they were usually not your best performers. And so that was, you know, kind of, it was a qualifier, of what your soldier was going to be like by how they conducted themselves, whether they pressed their uniforms or ironed them, and whether they polished their boots and all that. It was different back then. You started getting the brown boots, nothing left to polish. Then you didn't have to iron your uniform. Now it's kind of like just a guy with a duffel bag drag and brown boots, you know. As long as he can run, you know, less than 13 minutes and 16 seconds, he's a stud. So,
right. No, I agree with you. I think the Army all branches should go back to the BDU for non-deploy. Black boots. Use deploy with, because those uniforms didn't stand up to the test of time like the BDU. I mean, you could have BDUs that were, if you never wore them to the field, that made it 7, 8, 9 years because you took care of them, right?
Well, you had your field uniforms, if you remember right. You had your field BDUs that you wore out in the field.
Right. So you had the other ones. I remember being in AIT before I was 11 Bravo, and I had a bunch of Marines in the AIT, and they showed me how to take floor wax and put it on the inside of the pants. So when you iron the crease, they would stick a little bit and stay there.
Yeah.
Retired.
That's crazy.
16 people ironing the ACU or OIP, I think it was called. The people looking at you like, what's wrong with you?
Right. So yeah, no, it's just a little bit different on that side, and you know, you can kind of see it in I don't want to say this generation, but you can kind of see it though in what you see in today's, I guess, general population of military. And it's really kind of across the branches too. It's not necessarily an Army specific thing, but you know, you'll see it with the Marines, and you know, in the Air Force. If you ever go to a 4-star Holiday Inn, you know, you'll see it with the Air Force. But you know, it's just what it is. I think that's just a generational change in what we're seeing, and it's just time, you know. So I don't want to be that crusty old, you know, stay off my lawn guy, but you know, or that guy at the VFW talking about, you know, whatever. But you just kind of see it, you know.
When I retired, I was never going to go, you know who I am.
Oh yeah, you know, and so even in my corporate life, you know, I'll still go, you know, or before I left my corporate life this time, I'd still see, soldiers or veterans at a hotel checking in. And the last time I did it, I was actually in Beaumont, Texas, and there was about 10 Army guys sitting in the lobby. And I laughed because I was checking in the hotel at the same time. I'm khakis and pants, whatever. And I said, God dang, you guys heading to JRTC? And they looked over at me, and I was like, retired. And they're like, oh, okay. We're not supposed to tell you that. And I'm like, dude, I know you're on detail right now, aren't you? I said, who's in charge of the TMP? And they laughed, and it was some sergeant. I said, you guys want to, if you're going to bear it up in the hotel room? They're like, it. And I was like, DDY, man, been there, done it. But, but they weren't supposed to tell me what they were doing. I was like, Antropia is going to live, so.
Right, because it's so secret.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Nobody might tell you that.
Secret squirrel stuff.
Right. I never met those squirrels. I heard about it a lot. It's just like.
Well, if you go to any bar and you get somebody drunk enough, they know a secret squirrel.
my favorite thing is always they said, well, they have a lot of power, and I never met them.
Yeah. Well, just like a Navy SEAL. You ever met a Navy SEAL, you'll know he wrote a book.
Nowadays. So you're a forward observer. I don't know if you know this, and I don't know if you give two shits, but I literally retired out of DeVarty headquarters.
Really?
They re-stood up DeVarty after you retired, and they're still now. And yeah, I was the mobility NCO for 4ID's DeVarty headquarters, which basically meant I worked at a brigade headquarters, but then helped the division, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And so DeVarty was something that went away several years ago, and it's something that's kind of made its way back. And I don't remember if it was Colonel Winton or if it was or who was supposed to take over DeVarty, but yeah, it was right as I was leaving. I was starting to actually get rid of all my Joes out of the brigade FEC and pushing them down to the DeVarty line. So, and that's, to me, it's absolutely a fantastic concept, because your fisters always, when DeVarty went away, they pushed the fisters down to the infantry line, and so they were kind of ad hoc. Living with their infantry guys. If the detail comes along, you're out doing fist things, so you couldn't do it. If the artillery wanted to do something, you could, because you had infantry stuff to do. And now, fist is now doing fist things, which I think is actually pretty cool. So it gets them back to their core proficiencies, if you will. A little less sham time. So. Right.
No, I agree. DeVarty headquarters was an interesting place. I did appreciate the combat teams when they had a commander that understood. Yeah. Moving pieces. I myself, I'm not a general, so nobody gives a darn what I say, but I think they should have made whatever you're going to put the infantry unit into combat with, they should have made it that piece and made those infantry commanders take care of everything, the fisters, the mechanics, the whole 9 yards. It's Iraq and Afghanistan. What a cluster that is. I mean, you can't get anything done because everybody's like, I got my own mission. Well, I thought we were the. Anyway.
Right.
I need to be quiet. It's yours.
Right. And that was what the BCT was designed for, was to get all those pieces interlocked. And what it did is it actually separated them, and it made people kind of go do their own thing. And especially when you get to Iraq and Afghanistan, you and I have been to both, once you get to a COP, or once you get kind of to a remote outpost, all bets are off, man. And I mean, it's all about survival, and it's all about taking care of your own. And that's that, that's it.
Right. No, I agree with you 110%. No, the Army's definitely over the last 30 years changed, but my mentor, being a Vietnam vet, helicopter pilot, 3 tours in Vietnam, who I look very forward to coming onto the show, he tells me about an Army that I never even seen, not even a little.
So my mentor, and you mentioned a mentor, so I am a young 18 going into the Army. We're going back to Fort Bragg in 1988. Okay. My guy, and I'm 51 now, and I wish I could find this guy, and my understanding is he's passed, but I used to go running with him. His name was Sergeant Major Sexton. Sergeant Major Sexton would find me at the most odd times, and he was known for running up and down Ardennes, and he had 2 things. He had a hot Mr. Pibb that never saw a refrigerator, and non-filtered Pall Mall cigarettes. And what he would do is he would walk up Ardennes smoking non-filtered Pall Malls. He would grab out of his rucksack Mr. Pibb, drink it, and then go run 8 miles. And that's what he did basically every morning. And I would always try to avoid him. He'd find me, be like, Private Polwort, come here. And I'd be like, oh, son of a bitch. He go, go get your rucksack. Because back then you had to have your rucksack and your wall locker on display and all that kind of stuff. You remember that. And so I'd go get my rucksack, and he would sit out front, and he had that non-filtered Pall Mall, and he would smoke it. And I'm like, where we run to, Sergeant Major? He goes, oh, no, all of a sudden we get there. And you'd go off running for 2 hours, 3 hours. You'd go to Area J, find people doing, field problems, go talk to their command. You'd catch your breath. He'd come out, smoke another non-filtered Pall Mall, and away that man would go. And you're sitting there going, man, he's going to fucking kill me. But he was one of those Vietnam veteran guys that just, he was hard as woodpecker lips. And I mean, he was, to this day, he still holds a place in my heart that will never go away, because that was, to me, what a soldier was. No nonsense, no BS. Let's go, let's do it, and let's have a good time doing it. And that's what he did. I mean, he made those 8-mile runs seem like they were 2 miles, because you would go somewhere and he just, hey, let's go run over here. All right, let's go. And so we get there, and he was catching a little break, but it was a good time.
Awesome. I had some impactful NCOs like that. Sergeant Major Rock, he looked like he was something out of a cartoon. Big, like 6'6", blonde hair, just
Oh yeah.
Like this.
Yeah, and you always, I mean, there's always in your career, if you stay in long enough, you always remember two people. You remember the stud, like the Sergeant Major Sextons, or your Sergeant Major Rock. You always remember the guy that impacted you the most. But then the one other guy you always remember was the biggest turd you ever served with. And we all remember that big turd. That, I mean, I'm not going to talk about mine, but I mean, all I can tell you, and you've been in supply chain, but I did get smoked by a first sergeant for maybe or maybe not convincing this guy that the chem lights were no good. He cracked open 4 boxes of our chem lights based on a lot number provided. So.
Now, I wrote a book called Forgotten Truckers, which is actually going to be a series here on the YouTube channel. It's going to be under a playlist. I'm going to start recording it because I want to talk about it. But one of my people that I remember, and I refuse to use his name, but was a sergeant major like that in Kuwait on our way into Iraq in 2000.
Yep.
That basically told me that I was garbage and everybody I worked with was garbage and to go away and die. Because
really,
of what was going on. And I was just like, wow, I know I've been out for 9 years, but when did people turn into this? But anyway, your rant, not mine.
Yeah. No, I mean, you always remember those. And I mean, there's others that scattered along the way of, the ones you had and the ones you lost, and that's what we always remember. But, you're always going to remember, they always say your favorite duty station is the one you just left.
Yep.
And so, right. And so it's always kind of, but you still remember each one from those different deployments or not different deployments, but of different duty stations of, who your favorites were, so to speak, and who were guys that really made an impact. And hopefully over a career, whether it be 4 years or 20, you've had a few of those that have made an impact on you that make a difference. And that's really kind of one of the benefits of serving. So.
Yeah. One of mine is Command Sergeant Major retired, Ricky Young. He was the 166 Sergeant Major when 4ID was still at Hood. So this has been 6 and 7. And I was in the brigade PSD, and he was just a hell of a leader. We're still in contact via Facebook. I really hope that someday he'll come on here. But he was just one of those guys that you knew where you stood, and you're on the correct side of the line.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, that's the great part about it, though, is that, I mean, and you'll run across those guys, and it may be, 10 years from now, somebody's just going to pop up on your feed, and you're like, I remember that dude. And so it's kind of, it's cool when those things kind of happen. So I don't know. And I get a kick out of sometimes, just remembering some of my privates. And now that I'm out, I kind of still follow them a little bit on Facebooks or Twitters or whatever, and seeing what they're doing and kind of watching how, that you've impacted their life a little bit and seeing them kind of take the reins and taking charge and, what they chose to do, become a sheriff or highway patrol. I've got a young kid that was a PV2. He got out as a specialist, and now he started his own clothing line. He's a trucker. Yeah, I mean, he's doing some fantastic things, and nobody's a bigger supporter than me because it's like, go do your thing because that's what makes you different as a veteran because you're taking those skills and you're taking that attitude and you're notching it up a bit. And you've got a dream. He's got a plan. And I am so excited for people like him because it shows you why veterans are different in a lot of different ways, because he's following his plan, man. He's not moving left or right any, man. He's just straightforward. He's making a move, and that's awesome, man. And you know, it's on the officer side as well. You see officers doing the same thing, that, you know, they get out and now they're doing some pretty good high profile jobs, and that's what it's about, man.
No, I agree with you 110%. All right, one of my favorite parts. Here we go. Let me hear that "no shit, there I was" story. Let's do some rolling on the floor. What you got?
So, you know, I was thinking about this, and you know, in 20 years, there's tons of it. Whether it was, you know, well, there's just a ton of it. But the one thing that kind of always stood out that we like doing, and it really kind of it birthed many of bad ideas and many of decisions, was when I was at Fort Carson, 3rd ACR. In my platoon, we had a thing called "Who Won't You Want." Now, "Who Won't You Want" was really a challenge of your manhood. And so I could sit there and I could say, "Dave, you won't do this."
You won't? What is it?
It's "Who won't you want?"
Okay.
So I can look at you and say, "Dave, you won't cut your hair." And you could go, "Who won't?" And I can go, "You won't." Now, at that point, you've got a challenge. You can say, "Nah, I'm good, man. No harm, no foul." Or you can follow it up with 2 simple words, and it says, "Watch me."
All right.
So "Who won't you want" actually was a very bad thing for a lot of things. But in this particular one, we were in Iraq, and the MKT kitchen was out there, and it was the first part of the invasion. And of course, everybody's starving. He's got the 2 bottles, whatever. And so I had somehow managed to squirrel a 5-pound can of chocolate pudding. And I got it off the MKT, and that's all it was. And my driver looked over at me and he goes, "Hey, Sergeant P." And I was like, "What's up, bud?" And he goes, "We won't eat that whole thing that whole 5-pound can of chocolate pudding in one sitting." I said, "Who won't?" And he goes, "We won't." And I said, "Watch me." So between the 2 of us, we ate 5 pounds of pudding.
Oh.
Because you had to. Oh, it gets worse, dude. So we're sitting down and our stomachs are all bloated out, and I'm not feeling great at all. He looks over at me. He's got the pudding sweats going. He goes, "Sergeant P." And I was like, "What's up, man?" He goes, "You won't go 2 days without taking a dump." I said, "Who won't?" He goes, "You won't." I said, "Watch me." And he goes, "All right, you locked in, Sergeant." I was like, "All right." So I was good the first 24 hours. It's brewing. It's bubbling. Next day, not so much, man. And so I'm laying on my cot, and I've got the sweats. I'm ready to throw up, and it's just not a good thing. And now's the time I'm getting ready to cross LD, you know, and it ain't happening anymore. I was like, "Baker, I got to punch out." And he's like, "Sergeant, you promised?" I'm like, "Dude." So I did the duck waddle as best as I could out the building, because I know just any minute now we fixing to have a volcanic explosion like the Middle East has never seen at this point. And it's going to be bad. I'm talking ripped BDUs, probably going to bust my shoelaces. I mean, this thing is bad. I mean, I had an Audi belly button at this point. And so I turned the corner, and I saw the one thing I didn't want to see, which was the 55-gallon drum on fire with shit burning detail going on at that time. And I was like, man, this is not good. So long story short, I crawled along the other side of the building, found another 55-gallon drum, and we went wheels up. But it was not good. So "Who won't you want" it ended up being a lot of things that that happened over the years of bad decisions, but always pretty much a comical perspective almost every time.
So how many days did it take for you to get back to what you might call semi-regulated?
Well, I mean, it was a pretty effective cleansing, man. I'll tell you, I lost like 9 pounds in one sitting. I mean, it was horrible, man. I mean, I think I even lost my voice for a little bit.
We were going to start a fad, the chocolate pudding cleanse by Spencer Polwort.
You know, I wouldn't recommend it, but I mean, I think I shit so hard I lost my voice. So.
Now I ain't never done that.
Yeah, don't.
Well, all right, that's pretty funny right there. That's pretty funny. So you've been retired a couple years. So what's now? What's next? Where are you going?
So I got out, went back into the rail industry, which is something that I know. Started up a nonprofit. We've kind of since transitioned. So now I'm in the. I've since, let me kind of back up. I've since left the let's say I left the corporate world, and now I am semi-retired. I actually started up a YouTube channel on keto cooking, and now I've got a little bit more time to focus. I've got a nonprofit that we're getting ready to start up in the New Jersey area, and we'll get that started. But
what's the name of the keto channel going to be?
Trash Panda Keto Kitchen.
Trash Panda Keto Kitchen.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, so I never really thought so I never really thought about keto. I never really thought about the diet, but I tell you, I saw a picture of myself and I looked at it and I was like, holy shit, I got fat and nobody told me. And it's one of those pictures where you sit down and you think you're holding yourself good. You still think you're in that fighting weight from the military. You're not. You got fat. And I breakfast tacos and beer and all the food that I was eating felt right. But then I realized, man, I got to 240 some odd pounds and I didn't think I was fat until I saw this picture with my mom, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, I'm like, holy shit, I got fat. And so we started looking into different diets and stuff, and we went gluten-free, then we got into the keto. And I tell you, ever since I've changed it, man, I'm down to 198 pounds this morning. And, I get a lot of questions on it. And so I decided just to start a YouTube channel and kind of show other people how easy keto can be. So,
when not 198 down from
240.
Good job. Well done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be subscribing to your channel. And
now there's some videos you can look at. So
I interrupted you, and you said you were doing something else. I think you said something about New Jersey.
Yeah. So one of the other bonuses about being semi-retired is that now allows me time to focus on a new nonprofit that we're setting up. One of them was I had a nonprofit before that focused solely on veterans, but now what we're looking at is focusing strictly on veterans as well as first responders, military, fire, police, the whole 9 yards. So it's going to be hosted up in the New Jersey area with retreats up in the northeast side. So I'm looking forward to getting our paperwork finalized on that, and then once we do, we'll have an announcement on it, and I'll let you know.
So you're going to do some frequent flyer miles under American Express to go to New Jersey?
Oh yeah, probably. That's but I tell you what though, I wouldn't have it any other way, man. It's there's something fantastic, on a previous nonprofit I was with, doing retreats and talking with veterans and really addressing the suicide issue. One of the things that we had always found is that remarkably we're all similar, and there's a common thread that goes through a lot of veterans when you start talking about post-traumatic stress and you start talking about PTSD and kind of all the trauma that you see that veterans have, and that's why we kind of started moving towards the fire, police, and first responders as well, because a lot of guys in the military get out and they go to fire, police, and first responders because they're trading one trauma for another. So,
well, that sounds amazing. It really does. You enjoy it? Retired, or you like me, addicted to busy?
And that's kind of, again, when I talk about kind of, the semi-retirement thing, I'm fortunate enough that I have my retirement and disability and the whole 9 yards that I can kind of fall back. My wife's got a great job. And so it was for me, you get to a point in your life where you can chase the dollar and you can chase everything that you're supposed to be, or you can be happy. And in a lot of cases, you can't do both. And so, you can have, I had the Porsche. I had, I've had a lot of things and I've had a lot of success, but sometimes it comes at a cost. And I can go away and die early, and say that I made an impact in the corporate world, or I can choose to live longer and see my daughter eventually have grandkids and play with them and become healthy, and be generally happy and focus on helping others and serving others, which is what I think I'm here to do. And that's okay too, and you've got to make that choice. And so sometimes making that six-figure salary and living that lifestyle is great, but if you don't put it in perspective and you don't take care of yourself, it's not worth it.
No, I agree with you. So the whole purpose of this show is to try to make connections and help stop 22. So Spencer, if you would have had the chance to talk to somebody, what would your message to Stop 22 be, my friend?
So the one thing that you'll hear a lot is, man, I'm alone. You're not. And the thing that that we always kind of find is that, you know, you have that machismo of not wanting to reach out for help. And to me, that's the weakest thing you can do. You have got to reach out for help. There's resources out there, and if the first one doesn't answer, the first one's not there for you, you go to the second. You not go to that second, you go to the third. But you got to reach out for help, because one of the things that you don't realize is that your spouse knows you need help. And one of the things that I always thought was that I was doing a pretty good job of hiding it. You know, we're really good about compartmentalizing stuff, and we're really good about kind of building this crust around us. And we don't kind of project out sometimes what our problems are until they're too late. And that's when we kind of explode on everybody. But here's the fallacy of all of it. They know. Your family knows. Your spouse knows. Your mom and dad know that you're changed and you're different. You're not hiding it at all. And that's the crazy thing about it. And what they want you to do is they want you to get help, because they want you to be as best as you can the person that you used to be. One of the craziest things that I've ever done, and I thought it was the most new age weird stuff, and I was like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to sit here and talk to a stupid horse. Equine therapy, dude, 2 thumbs up. I had never done it before. The first time I did it, I still remember the horse's name was Snickers. But I remember that horse because it changed me. And equine therapy is something that horses are bred to do different things, and they're smart creatures. So if you ever get a chance to tag on to something, equine therapy, you can tell a horse anything. You can tell them all your deepest, darkest secrets, your deepest, darkest fears, and that horse will listen to you. And those horses that are trained to do equine therapy are absolute freaking miracle workers. And so it doesn't have to be a retreat to where you go on a mountain climbing trip. It's not a whitewater rafting trip. It's not a campfire trip. If you find a place in your area that does horse equine therapy and you go and you book an hour, life-changing.
That's awesome advice. I appreciate that. I've never done the equine therapy. Usually walk near a mule and they go, who's that jackass?
Yeah, and I ran across a super, super fantastic friend of mine. She actually was certified to do equine therapy and teach it. And they turned it on to us in my previous nonprofit. And I'll tell you, not for them, I mean, it is a fantastic program. So do yourself a favor. If you got equine therapy in your area, look them up, because it's not just talking to a regular horse. It's got to be an equine therapy horse, because they're trained that when you stop engaging them, they send out subtle clues and subtle hints to the person who's the handler. So when I quit talking to Snickers and I tried to fake the funk, Snickers would look down and start eating grass. Once you stop engaging them, the horse will stop engaging you, and they know it. As you engage him, that horse, man, he'll put his head on yours, he'll nudge you, he'll start walking with you, and he'll get with you. And you open up to that horse, and it becomes different. It sounds crazy. And if you're like me, you're like, man, what's next, crystals? It ain't like that. It's something that if you do it, man, holy cow, it's fantastic.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. And thanks a million, Spence, for coming on here and sharing your rant, rattle, and roll with us, because it's been fun.
I tell you what, man, anytime I tell you what you're doing is an absolutely fantastic thing. The craziest thing about all this is we've all got stories, and it's funny because I enjoy the rant parts of your videos, because I'm like, dude, I know exactly what you're talking about, and everybody watching is sitting there going, I get you. I get it. Yep, nope. Because nobody understands military humor. And I'll tell you right now, in the corporate world, HR doesn't understand your military humor either. So the jokes that are always funny to us don't necessarily translate sometimes to the corporate environment. So
no, amen.
That's what she said. Jokes are not the best thing in a corporate environment.
Well, you're right. That's the biggest reason for doing this, trying to build connections so that maybe somebody who's thinking about joining the 22 might hear your message, Spencer, and go, you know what? I relate to him, and he's still doing his thing, so I want to keep doing my thing. So again, thanks.
If you're one of the ones thinking about being a 22, man, don't. And I'll tell you, it's what you leave behind, the wake of destruction. If you love your family, it's the wake of destruction you're going to leave behind you is about 10 times worse than what you're getting ready to do to yourself. So don't do it. Reach out to people, whether it be Facebook, whether it be any type of resource, and don't stop until you get an answer.
No, amen to that. My biggest thought has always been, if you or me, if I can't handle my own stuff, How can I hand it off to somebody I love?
That's right.
It's not a gift to get rid of. They get haunted by it.
Well, and even then, I mean, when you're handing off that pain, you got to remember you're handing off a lifetime of pain. And so, you know, God forbid you have children, you know, that child now is going to live the rest of their life knowing how you love them. And man, it's just not, that's not the way to go. And so reach out, you know, and that's why I say just continue to reach out. If you reach out and nobody's there, reach out to somebody else. Somebody's going to be there. They're going to be there. And with programs like yours and you know, the idea of connecting with other veterans, that's what you need to do. Connect with another veteran, and I'll tell you, you're going to find somebody that's there. So.
Right. Imagine what we could do if all the different organizations that are there for veterans decided to work together.
Powerful. Powerful. You got to put that aside.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. Spencer, again, thank you so much for being here. Remember, if you like what you saw, please hit the subscribe button, hit a like button. Make sure you know we're doing another video. Should be any time now. If you want to be on here, if you're a veteran, go ahead and go to veteransrantrattleandroll.com and hit book an interview, or go to the Facebook and hit book now. Love to talk to you. I don't care if you're in the military for 1 minute or as long as Spencer was, it's all good. Again, thanks for tuning in. This is Veterans Rant, Rattle, and Roll signing off.